You're listening to Pitch Talks, bringing you the game.
Thank you for joining us today on Pitch Talks, a UK top 4 career podcast dedicated to bringing you stories from those currently in the sports industry and, most importantly, career advice to help you achieve your dream role. Today, myself and Sam will be talking with Thomas Junod, head of the UEFA Academy, where we'll be finding out exactly what he does day to day, how his career got into where he is, and the advice he would give you. So let's get to it.
This is Pitch Talks, bringing you the game.
Thomas, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Pitch Talks. How are you today?
I'm all fine. Thanks a lot for welcoming me. So hi, Mitch, and hi, Sam. Very happy to be with you.
Fantastic. I'd like to start by finding out what sport means to you personally. Was it always a passion of yours from an early age? And did you, like many others today, have the dream to work in the sports industry?
Yeah, I can say that sport has always been a passion for me. I have to disclose I'm much better talking about sport and watching sport rather than being an athlete myself. I'm doing a little bit of sport, but this is more for, I would say, my own maintenance. But I never been an elite athlete. Unfortunately, I never even dreamt to be an elite athlete because I think I realized at a very early age I would never have the level to reach this. To be honest, my main sport in terms of being a practitioner has never been football. I was practicing street hockey or street and ball hockey, which is an obscure sport even in Switzerland. It's kind of a outdoor version of ice hockey where you play in sneakers, but still is kind of violent because you have all the equipment of ice hockey. And another sport which is not violent at all, which is curling. So I don't think you can think about two most extreme sports for different reasons. And I guess I have a passion for niche sport. But of course, football has always been a passion, but again, more as being a fan or being someone who like to attend big events rather than being a football player myself.
So going right back to the start of your career, you touched on it then actually about the work in ice hockey, but you also covered football, which has obviously led you onto working more in the football industry, particularly UEFA. Was sports journalism something that you always wanted to do growing up? And where did that first opportunity come about and how did that come about?
Yeah, I was my first dream actually, at least connected to sport, was to become a sport journalist and a sport reporter. So someone speaking about sport, commenting live sport. And I had the opportunity during my studies actually to join a local newspaper first and then to be noticed and to get in touch with other people working in this industry and then to be hired by a local radio station. Again, still along my studies first and after I worked at a certain percentage, but mostly in the evening and weekends with them. And at the time, it was a successful time for the teams of my region because they were both playing both in ice hockey and football in the first division. So I had quite quickly the opportunity to comment at the highest level, I would say, in Switzerland. And to achieve this dream I had as a kid or as a teenager to work as a sport journalist. Then I realized, to be honest, that if I wanted to progress or keep doing what I was enjoying, I had the opportunity to stay at the radio local station, but I had a little bit more ambition than this, or to move maybe for the Swiss national radio or the Swiss national television. But I was really into radio because I'm someone who like to tell stories, to describe an environment. So I was more interested, I would say, in radios and television. And the Swiss national radio do not do a lot of live commentary. They do a lot of great programs, a lot of great, interviews and stuff like this, but there is not a lot of live actions to comment on radio. So again, it was kind of a trade-off between being what I was good at and loving to do in live commenting and transforming a little bit myself to try to do a little bit more interviews and and I would say investigation. Maybe there was a little bit more opportunities maybe for television, but of course it's also a very competitive market. And also there, I mean, when I was working at the local radio station, I was, you know, having the opportunity to comment sometimes 3 times a week, whilst on television would have been maybe once a month or twice a month if I would be among the best TV commentators, and also having a little bit of luck. So I realized I was really happy having done it, having achieved what I wanted to do as a teenager. But I'm someone very curious, so I wanted to try something out. And thanks to different opportunities, I had the opportunity then to touch sport in another way, as first a researcher at the university, and then as a sports manager or sports administrators, I would say, for UEFA. But I'm still missing sports journalists, to be honest.
I was actually going to go on to sort of how your early roles has obviously affected what you do now. And obviously, as you said there is still part of you that wants to go back. Are there any skills that you picked up, particularly maybe soft skills, even so, when you were early in your career, starting out in those journalism roles, that you still make use of today?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key skills or the key stuff I learned at radio is that, you know, if you do not turn on the mic at 8 o'clock when the game is starting, I mean, there is no commenting, right? So you need to deliver on time. You need to be ready, and you need to be ready to face some technical problems as well, and to find a solution, and to, you know, even if the game, let's say, is postponed of 5 minutes, to have enough to tell to people for 5 minutes, to invent something to say. So I think this idea of being ready on time has been a very good skill to have later on in my career. And also the possibility to speak in front of an audience. Even at the radio, you still have, you know, you don't see necessarily your audience, but the idea of presenting and having to tell a story to people, and to try to captivate people just with the sound of your voice. So I think this is something which is important now that I'm in learning. I still need to captivate in my audience, to try to engage them, to try that they want to stay with me or with the speakers in the room. So there's definitely 2 skills, I would say, which are definitely transferable from what I learned at radio and now what I'm doing in my job.
The last question I've got around the sort of the sports journalism, are there any moments, are there any matches that you covered that really stick in your mind, that you think that was, you know, I really enjoyed that above any others?
Well, I told you I was lucky at the time to comment at a period where both teams of my region of Switzerland were competing, I would say, at the highest level, or at least at the highest league, but maybe not for the top position. So I have to say, I commented much more defeats than victory. And it became interesting when actually my ice hockey team got relegated because we were winning games again, right? I would say probably my best moments were actually when I was putting out of my comfort zone and I had to comment on sports I was not very familiar. So I had to do a playoff game of volleyball, which was a lot of excitement, but I had to say, you know, I had to find a way to be credible in commenting something I was not necessarily born with or following really closely. And I had also, in the most extreme, I had to comment was swimming. Again, it's pretty boring to comment swimming on radio. So this was an interesting stuff to do. And golf as well. This was not for radio, but for newspaper. But it was interesting, again, to be chosen to follow sports I was not necessarily familiar with. The most extreme probably was Swiss wrestling. It's kind of is played only in Switzerland, I guess. Kind of an alpine format of wrestling, which was quite interesting. Also for the surrounding of the events, not necessarily for the event itself, but for all the atmosphere around.
That is quite some spectrum of sports that you were covering.
This is Pitch Talks.
Then for a few years after your journalism, you then carried out a few what we'll call office-based roles, so to speak. So from a personal assistant at the Swiss Federal Parliament, And then something you mentioned just a moment ago about being a lecturer at a university. What was the factors in your decision to kind of step away from the sports industry, as in being really heavily involved as you were as a journalist?
Well, I would not say I was stepping away, because I had actually carried these 3 jobs kind of in parallel, because I was, after my studies at the university, I had the chance to stay at the university, to go on the other side, I would say, and to start researching and lecturing about sports management and sports economics at the time. This was a job I was doing 50%, the rest being time I was investing being an assistant for people elected at the Swiss Parliament. So I was working at the Swiss Parliament and working with this politician. And on top of this, in the evening and in the weekend, I was commenting at the radio. So I was doing kind of 3 jobs in parallel, which means my weeks were really, really busy. They are still, but I have only 1 job now. Yeah, I had the possibility to discover kind of 3 different roles, 3 different kind of jobs, and then to nourish basically myself from this different experience to then try my luck in becoming a sport administrator. I never really moved away from sport. Maybe the part of the Swiss Parliament was most away from sports, but I learned a lot also in this job, and I enjoyed this job as well.
Just carrying on along the theme of sort of your non-sports based roles, is that something that you would advise anyone who is starting out to sort of try and diversify your career experience, to try and pick up soft skills or transferable skills from outside of the world of sports, so that you can then bring them back into a role within sport?
Not necessarily, but I would say 2 things here. The first is there are more and more programs, bachelor degree or master degrees, offering specialization in sports management. I would not advise, for instance, to enroll in a bachelor degree. I think it's too early. I think of very good management programs where potentially, because you like sport, you do all your assignment, your group work around sports, is more interesting, because you close less door at an early stage in your career. There is really a fantastic sports management program, but a really good management programs is opening more doors, more opportunities, and you can still specialize later on. But in parallel of this, and this is the second thing I'd like people remember, is that sport is a very special industry, where it's probably one of the only industry where you don't have the excuse of not having experience when you apply, I would say, for a job at UEFA. Because there are so many opportunities to work, maybe in a voluntary position in the world of sports. Think about all the sports events organized in local community. You can easily be the treasurer for this event, or the president, or the secretary, or the volunteers manager for these events. And you will accumulate a lot of experience. And if it's not in events, is in the club of your region, of your city, where you have the possibility again to become a coach, or to become in charge of the youth movement, or of being in charge of, I don't know, the catering for the club or whatever. But you have a lot of opportunities to be confronted in a professional environment, or at least to deliver, to accumulate sports administration experience. And I would never hire someone at UEFA who has not this experience. So I don't really care if it was a paid or non-paid experience, but I would require, even for a young person applying to UEFA, that they made their experience, that they prove their passion for sport in being a volunteer for this kind of organization, because there is a lot of needs for this organization. This organization needs people, and there is no better place to learn the soft skills or even the hard skills than this place, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer and some fantastic insight for people looking not only just to get into UEFA, but just sports industry in general.
You're listening to Pitch Talks.
So far we've discussed your early career and what motivated you from an early age, And we've spoke about some of your other work experiences, which, as you've mentioned, has given you a great depth of skills and knowledge. However, now I want to come on to, the more present day, your time at UEFA. You've been there now for just over 14 years, starting back in 2007 as the UEFA Universities coordinator. How did that opportunity come to fruition, and what initially sparked your interest to, as you mentioned, say, almost step aside from those three roles you were doing in parallel and just solely focus on UEFA?
So at the time I was working at the university, and I was starting to work on a PhD, but I knew maybe, it was great to do the job for a year, but I was not sure I would commit really for 3 or 4 years of PhD. So, but I was quite transparent also with the university about this. And when I had actually kind of made my mind, maybe, I like my job as a lecturer, maybe a little bit less as a researcher, there was an opportunity which was published by UEFA about this university's coordinator role. Actually, I didn't see it, but a friend of mine called me and said, well, you should have a look for this position because it looks very much like you. And we usually said that, it's great to apply for a position when you match with 50% of what is written, or maybe a little bit less. But honestly speaking, in this case, I really recognized myself when this position was advertised. So I tried my luck, and no one at UEFA at the time, and I was grateful UEFA gave me this opportunity to join the organization. And since there, I had the opportunities to really grow. I never thought I would stay for 14 years in the organization, and I did it because I could grow with the organization, because people trust me there. They gave me more responsibility. They also bought some of my ideas. A lot of ideas went to the bin, but among the numerous ideas I was able to generate, some went through, and I was also lucky to be surrounded by fantastic people. There are a lot of talented people at UEFA. I'm using their talents every day, because my job now as someone being in education is just to connect people and connect, let's say, interested and motivated students with guys having a lot of experience and a lot of talent. So I'm still learning every day with these people. And this is why it explains I'm now 14 years for UEFA and still really motivated as a first day in a different fashion, but still super, super interested and passionate about what I'm doing in an everyday.
You've touched on it slightly there about sort of the motivation and why you do your role, but what about it, the current role that you're in at the moment? What do you really love? What do you love the most about your current role?
So at the moment, I have the pleasure to head the UEFA Academy, which is in a nutshell the internal business school of UEFA. So we deliver education programs for people working in football or in sport in general, but with a primary focus, obviously, about people working in the sport industry and working in our national association and their different stakeholders. So there are a lot of stuff I like about my job, but if I had to keep once, I would still say the connection with the participants, is the classroom. Even the virtual classroom, actually, we had no choice about it over the last year, but this contact, because this is where you get the feedback, and this is where you learn, because I'm still listening what my colleagues or what our experts are saying. And also, we work with all professionals. Our students are people working in the industry, so we learn also a lot from them. So this is really, where I like to spend time in the contact with the people. Is really the people industry as well, if I can say so. So this is why I have long day and still long weekend, because now in my position there is also a lot of administration. There is also a lot of strategic meeting, which I like as well. But since I like to be in the classroom during the day, I need to work a little bit longer hours in the evening or in the weekend to do still the administration and the strategy and maybe the more boring meetings. But definitely launching, also if I can keep a second stuff, launching new ideas, launching new programs, working on what we could do better, I think is really something which I am really committed into. And sometimes people working with me tell me, yes, it's the third times we do these programs, but it's the first time for you participants. So we can maybe keep this exercise. So I think there is always a balance being still motivating yourself and trying new stuff. And of course, I mean, giving a second chance or a third chance to an idea of what you have done the last time and just trying to improve it, right? But I'm definitely into trying new stuff also. So even after 14 years, yes, you can still try to innovate and bring new ideas. And this is also explained why I think we've been very successful with the Academy, because we never rest on our laurels, right? We always try to launch new stuff and to put ourselves in danger as well in trying new stuff, because when it's the first time you launch a new programs or a new exercise, it's like at the radio I was mentioning before. I mean, at the end, you have 30 people who are waiting for a great exercise, who are expecting something new in the classroom, or at least something interesting in the classroom. So you need to deliver. And I think this kind of risk factors in trying to put ourselves in danger, but with stuff we enjoy ourselves trying, is also what explains the success of our programs.
So we've just touched upon the stuff that you do as the head of the UEFA Academy, but as a whole, what is the overall mission that the UEFA Academy tries to achieve?
So basically, the idea is to serve what is the primary mission of UEFA, which is the promotion, the protection, and the development of the game. So UEFA invests in many aspects of the game. And when I'm speaking is about investment, might be financial investment, but also obviously supporting our member association to do things more efficiently, to connect the association together, to bring them new ideas, new, incentives to do things in a different way. And of course, educating people as part of this process is very important. So this is how the UEFA Academy is born, and the education programs we're delivering are born. And now with the creation of the UEFA Academy, we have just enlarged the scope, because one of the things we have realized is that a lot of the value of the education amongst adults is coming from the conversation happening in the classroom, and not only about having one expert delivering his or her knowledge, but also making sure that there are knowledge transferred among the participants. So in enlarging the profiles, I would say, of the students who are welcoming in our programs, we also realized that the conversation were just richer, were more interesting. This is why I would say what has changed recently with the creation of the Academy versus education before the Academy is that the backgrounds of the people in the classrooms are more diverse. They are representing more stakeholders, sometimes even different sports. And again, we are learning as much as the students as through the expert. Our role is more to make sure this learning happens, and that we create learning opportunities at their max, I would say, because we create interactive exercise and interesting context to have this conversation happening.
You're listening to Pitch Talks, bringing you the game.
Being at UEFA for as long as you have been, I can only assume that you've witnessed some fairly special moments, shall we say. Are there any that sort of spring to mind on a personal level or global level that we will all remember?
Well, when you work with sport, I hope it's because you have a passion in sport. This is also what makes the beauty, and makes you maybe work on extra hours or works on extra miles, because you still have this passion. And I certainly still feel privileged to work in such an industry. So of course, I mean, even if I'm more in classrooms than in stadium, but sometimes the classrooms are in stadium, so you can link the two, right? But I felt privileged working with UEFA that I could attend and sometimes be a little actors in the big events that we organize. So of course, working, maybe removing sometimes my hats of being a learning expert and doing maybe smaller roles, but as part of a big event, such as the previous Euro, starting with Euro in 2008 in my own country, Switzerland, have been very special moments. Yeah, I mean, then when you go and you attend another events, and I am passionate also about big gathering, big events. So for me, the COVID years are a little bit special, to be honest, because some of my best memories is also attending as a fans, these big events, being the events we are organizing as UEFA, or traveling to a World Cup or Olympic Games. So it's also all the connection, meeting the people, and it's also what happened around the stadium. So it's difficult for me to choose one specific moment, but yeah, having the opportunities to see a derby, for instance, in Ukraine between Dynamo and Shakhtar Donetsk has been very, very special. For instance, it's one event I remember, and another one was here completely as a fan and going with friends to go in witness downhill in skiing at Streif in Kitzbühel. It's definitely an event I will always remember, not necessarily for the sports spectacle, because at the end you are at the arrival place and you watch the ski mostly in a giant screen, but the atmosphere of this event, for instance, is absolutely fantastic. Or another one related to more my connection to UEFA was to come back again at this Euro in 2008 in Switzerland. I was at the time working in Bern, which I worked before for the Swiss Parliament, and I saw the city completely transformed because the Netherlands were playing there, and there was really an orange wave, and everybody who was at Bern and then Basel at the time remembers this, that the city was becoming completely orange, and even the Swiss citizens were buying this orange shirt because they wanted to be part of this celebration and of this orange wave. So to see a city I was knowing very well completely transformed because of the event was a moment really I will always remember.
Our final question for you, Thomas, today is more the advice. What advice do you give to people that are, coming through the UEFA Academy, or advice that you think our listeners would benefit from in terms of trying to get into the sports industry?
Yeah, I think a first one I already gave is this notion for me that you have no excuse not to have experience. I would say also when you do a programs it's not enough to do a program. It will be an help. It might be also an help future in your career. This is more where we do at the UEFA Academy, is not necessarily to help you to enter the industry, but more to consolidate your place in this industry or to grow within the organization you are working for. So I would say to the students of our programs, what I'm always saying is to seize the momentum of our programs, not to change job, because we train people in our member association and they would not be very happy if they would send us people and then the first things these people wants to do is to change job, right? Or to ask for a promotion, but more to try to grow your influence within your organization. So when you do an academic assignment in a programs, try to do something which is not just a pure academic exercise, but which has a meaning for an organization. Share your reports with your managers, or if you're working outside of the industry, try to really dialogue with the industry before choosing your topic for your thesis or bachelor thesis or whatever. So you create this connection with the industry and you try to deliver content which are meaningful for the organization. So this is why I'm calling growing influence, trying to impact positively, trying to engage in a dialogue with the organization. I don't think there is anything worse than just doing a professional programs just without knowing why you do this. So also everything you do should have a reason, not necessarily a material reason, but something you engage in a programs to achieve something, right? For you and for your organization, because at the end, you also want to change stuff around you, right? So you should know what you're looking for or looking at when you're engaging into a program.
No, that's really fascinating. And Thomas, we've really enjoyed hearing about your experiences and the advice that you've just constantly supplied all the way through this episode. It's been fantastic to hear about your pathway leading you to now manage the head UEFA Academy, the day-to-day work that you and the Academy are doing to support the next generation, and some of the incredible moments that you've witnessed through some of the roles that you've done, from being a journalist and now your role today. So all that leaves me to say is thank you to Thomas for being on the podcast today.
So thanks to you, Mitch. Thanks to you, Sam. It was a pleasure for me as well. And all the best for you as well. Enjoy a summer of football.
Oh, Absolutely. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you leave us a review on our Apple Podcasts or give us a follow on any of our social media channels. This has been Pitch Talks, the sports career podcast focused on helping you get into sport.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bringing You the Game by Pitch Talks. For more information on our latest episodes, careers advice, or to even get involved as a guest, get in touch with the team at mitch@pitch-talks.com or send us a message on any of our social platforms. Thanks for tuning in. Bringing you the game. Pitch Talks.
All Pitch Talk content is copyright protected.
Pitch Talks.